We're supposed to learn more at about 10 a.m. at a live news conference. That will happen at Cloquet City Hall at the police department. Now, if you take a look behind me here, the scene is a little bit more quiet here at the Super 8 in Cloquet. North Shore LS LLC has bought several homes along Minnesota Avenue here in Park Point, like this one. That was just bought at the end of February, but just 3 houses down. Residents are worried that it'll turn into plots like these ones that were just bought at the end of last year, and now they're completely leveled. If you take a look over here, there are still crews on scene. We have several fire trucks and ambulances out here just outside the Applebee's and the Barnes & Noble here at the mall. Now, as you can see, this is what the sailors see when they're out on Lake Superior, the waters of Lake Superior, and they travel the entire lake. There's about over 30 yachts that made that journey. But they have open play throughout the week on Mondays and Thursdays, Monday mornings, Thursday evenings. I'm getting a workout here, as you can see, folks. Roan says between 700 and 800 ships pass through the port each year. Right now, we're sitting at about 468, which is down compared to years past. Frozen and fresh turkeys are usually heavy in weight, but this year, they're also heavy in price. It takes a dedicated group of folks to get rinks like this one up and running, to get players to the big leagues. For most students, a normal package for portraits costs about $350. But for most seniors, those pictures are priceless. Feeling unsafe.
Everyone just kind of hid. Because, I don't know, I think the teachers were in shock a little bit, too.
After empty threats were made to Cloquet schools and about a dozen others throughout the state Wednesday, Caleb Newton, a senior at Cloquet High School, was worried.
I'm not going to lie, I almost started crying. I was just, hiding. I was just sitting there wow, this is real life right now, and I don't know, it's crazy.
And now it's making him question his classroom safety.
I was thinking, I don't want to come back here tomorrow, or
Those empty threats made Wednesday at schools like Newton's are part of what law enforcement calls an unfortunate new trend, swatting.
Swatting is often calling in a hoax that is a threat.
It's happening all over the state and nation. And Drew Evans with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension says it's dangerous.
Is that we have a lot of law enforcement now responding to one location, armed, expecting to be engaging in an encounter, and you never know what could happen in that position or what that might occur.
These threats can pull away law enforcement from responding from other calls. Evans says it's important to remain vigilant.
As I noted, that it creates a lot of law enforcement response, wasted resources, but more importantly, it causes alarm in our communities, which we can't tolerate.
Moving forward, the BCA says they have an app called the BCA Tip app, which allows the public to report suspicious activity.
We want them to report any suspicious activity or this type of activity if they learn it online. We will work with local law enforcement then to make sure it's adequately addressed.
I felt that I was okay to drive.
That's the same excuse Officer Todd Simmons with Duluth PD hears all the time when stopping people for potential DWIs.
There was 124 deaths, drunk driving deaths in Minnesota last year, and we're seeing an uptick in those numbers.
And that uptick is concerning for Simmons, who looks for some key signs when he suspects a drunk driver.
Jerking of the wheels, wide turns, varying speeds.
He says it's because impaired drivers are trying to concentrate more than normal.
But it could be a number of things, like a failure to signal or a stop sign is another big violation.
Over 117 people were caught last year by Officer Simmons driving behind the wheel under the influence. And he says this year he's on par to break that record.
There's signs that you watch out for, obviously slurred speech, wobbling when they're walking a little bit, things like that.
Keith Kern is the president of the Tavern League Wisconsin. He says he personally hasn't seen more impaired people get behind the wheel this year. He knows there's also a need for programs to stop it from happening.
Safe Ride program is a program that was created by the State of Wisconsin Tavern League quite a few years ago.
They give out free rides.
The bar does, if they are participating, we do charge $4 for that voucher, and then the Tavern League picks up the rest of the expense.
Back in Duluth, Officer Simmons says have a game plan before you go out.
Our goal is to encourage people to have a plan to get home safely rather than risk getting into a vehicle and hurting someone or yourself.
At least 9 homes are now gone on Duluth's Park Point after a billionaire bought the land and tore them down.
Now, Kathy Cargill of the Cargill family in the cities has bought at least 20 plots in the neighborhood with no communication as to what she's going to do with them.
The mayor is now involved, and neighbors who live on Park Point are nervous about whether their home could be next.
And Northern News Now's Mitchell Zimmermann spoke with those neighbors.
The waves of Lake Superior crash on Duluth's Park Point each day.
It's just a really unique community, and I think people are drawn to that when they come experience it.
But for the last few months, a wave of curiosity has washed ashore.
It sparked curiosity, and basically I'm just bringing awareness to that and trying to ask what's actually going on and what's the long-term plan.
For just about a decade, Kyle Ingebrigtsen has called Park Point home, and now he has a new neighbor. Kathy Cargill, the wife of one of the heirs to the Cargill fortune in the Twin Cities. She moved into the neighborhood in 2021.
And I started seeing other unique sales happening on the point where it was like places selling for double or triple what they would normally sell for. So that had my curiosity sparked.
Just in the last few months, Cargill has purchased at least 20 parcels of residential land, some homes, some empty lots, all throughout the point, using a company not in her name. North Shore LS LLC has bought several homes along Minnesota Avenue here in Park Point, like this one that was just bought at the end of February, but just 3 houses down. Residents are worried that it'll turn into plots like these ones that were just bought at the end of last year, and now they're completely leveled. Cargill has leveled 9 homes, leaving residents like Ingebrigtsen and Mackenzie Kapsner, who's called Park Point home for a long time, confused.
I was about 9 years old when I first moved down here.
When Kapsner moved to the point, it was mostly blue-collar workers. Now it's home to a billionaire.
I don't want Park Point and the community to get lost, because the money is coming in and these big, mansions or vacation homes are going to be here.
Duluth Mayor Roger Reinert says that big money in a small portion of Duluth has further contributed to a housing crunch felt all over the city. Reinert even reached out to Kathy Cargill to get answers.
One of the things I said in my first letter was respect your private property rights to do this.
In his letter, Reinert also told Kathy Cargill leaving lots empty can create issues for those who live around them.
I'm very concerned about withdrawing housing stock from our portfolio when we've struggled to create new homes, when we need new, especially single-family for-purchase homes.
And while several, including Reinert, have tried to get answers from Kathy Cargill with no avail, we tried. We went to Kathy Cargill's Park Point home, wanting to hear her side of the story, but never got a response. That silence has left some filling in the blanks, but for the residents of Park Point, they just want to know what's going on.
This is my plan. You don't have to give us details or anything, but just maybe give people a little bit of sense of relief or calmness.
People want to know what's going on in their tight-knit community, and hopefully we can get some answers soon.
In Duluth, Mitchell Zimmermann, Northern News Now.